What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Day two in the books here from Latrobe Steelers training camp. A lot I want to talk about today. A lot I think that we can cover in the second practice. I think there was a lot that went on today, and guys, I want to highlight. Make sure to go check out Steelers Training Camp Rewind to highlight some of those guys. We'll go a little deeper into those here, but I do want to start off. People have been asking me a lot about Justin Fields and kind of my thoughts on him, and how he can struggle with processing at times, or maybe he misses here or there, and then he has these dazzling deep balls. Like what that actually says about him. Oh, I think we can make kind of this a synopsis of training camp as a whole, because you look at for example, what Dante Jackson did yesterday, and he had a good day. Like Dante Jackson legitimately had a good day yesterday, and because he allowed the big play to Van Jefferson, or he allowed a slant to George Pickens, sometimes you can hear it creep up, and you'll hear, oh, he wasn't actually that good, et cetera, et cetera. Something about that, right? There's peaks and valleys to most of these days. Very rarely are guys just incredible throughout the entire day. Now, there are examples of that. For example, today, TJ Watt, elite player, right? But we're also not necessarily talking about elite players here either way. And so there are peaks and valleys. It's a practice. It's also kind of a way to experiment. Like, for example, when Dante Jackson fell, he was pressing up on Van Jefferson. It's not really something he does a ton of in games. He's got, a slighter frame. And so, you experiment a little bit. Justin Fields experiments a little bit too, probably in practice. So I do want to kind of talk about the synopsis of that. Now, today, I thought Justin Fields, he was solid again. I don't think he was this, I think there's two sides to this Fields thing, and he's either got to be good or bad. Can't just be, you know, decent or solid. That's what I would say. Listen, I think he missed a few guys in terms of accuracy at points. In 7 shots specifically, I think he led Fryermuth a little bit too far out on the flat. He's aired out a few balls a little too far, specifically when he's going to the sideline outside the numbers. And you look at his deep ball and it's accurate, but then you go to like the intermediate part of the field and you go outside the numbers, and man, those balls get sprayed everywhere. He'll have beautiful throws like the one he had to Pat Fryermuth up the seam against the Sean Elliott, and then he'll throw a ball where it's just not even in the neighborhood, or aired too far out. He missed Van Jefferson towards the back pylon in 7 shots too. Probably had a play there, but he aired it out a little too far. And so I think really this is what Justin Fields has shown in Chicago. He has this dazzling deep ball. Sometimes he runs into sacks and makes the wrong read, throws a pick. He can have some accuracy misses. He also can make some absolutely gorgeous throws, some rare throws that a lot of people can't make in the NFL. And so there is so much that you can break down and kind of silo into in Justin Fields' game. But overall, I mean, he was solid. There were parts of his game that I think he fell short in. And I think, we talked about this in OTAs, for example. And there are other parts where he really excels. And so when I'm asked my opinion of him, it's either got to be good or bad. I want to make it very clear. I think Justin Fields has very good talent, has obvious talent, but I also think, he has these issues he has to fix. It's pretty clear. Doesn't mean he, can't be a good NFL quarterback to this point. He hasn't been, a sustained good NFL quarterback. He's been consistent up and down. I think he had more consistency today than he did yesterday. I thought the deep ball really flashed today. It's obviously, deep ball to George Pickens, that video going around. I thought he really developed a nice connection with the rest of his targets, wasn't as reliant on his first read at all. I thought, he went through one, two, three pretty well today. I thought his eyes were better. I talked about that yesterday. That's a big part of his improvement today. So I thought Justin Fields looked better today in some regards. Still solid. Again, not, a star in terms of what he did, but I thought did a nice job today overall. I think he's doing a nice job in camp. So Steelers are I think, should be happy with what they're seeing. Solid 2 practices for him, even when you see the obvious issues that he has with accuracy in the intermediate part of the field, specifically, outside the numbers, or on moving targets. So solid for Justin Fields, but I want to talk about some other guys. Specifically, I want to talk about Roman Wilson. We saw a lot of motion today, and that was different types of motions. Motion on the move. It was, motion at the snap where guys get the running start. Obviously that was very much, very much popularized by Mike McDaniel last year. We saw him do that, and we saw him run a lot of these intermediate routes, over routes. We saw him run a deep out, which I thought was nice from the outside, by the way. I thought that was really nice to see. So he ran a number of routes. I remember in 7 shots, he came across the formation, was outside, went inside, and then came across on a drag route, was open, but he got socked in the back. Like, he really got hit hard in the back, went down and still caught it. Nice catch. He caught at least 3 or 4 over routes today where his speed and explosiveness were just too much for people to handle. I really do think that that's going to be the bread and butter of how they're going to use Roman Wilson. And I think it makes sense for them to use Roman Wilson like that because, he has had some trouble with physicality on his Michigan tape. And that's why, the slot only stuff kind of came up during the draft process. But when you use his speed and athleticism and attack horizontally like that, I mean, it's an immediate plug and play. Like, that's where his production is going to come from. And I think he'll grow around the physicality eventually and get better at the line of scrimmage and get those nuances going. So I really thought Roman Wilson had a nice day today. And I think they have a really kind of obvious role for him. Two things with Arthur Smith's offense today. Started to see some inside zone and duo come out. So that's interesting. A lot more RPOs and PA boots today. The RPO game is far more robust in this offense than it was in Matt Canada's offense, and we saw that pretty clearly today. It still seems like the timing's still a little off. Again, it's early in training camp. So I'm not super concerned about these kind of flubby things, especially for an offense with this much new. And when they had been working with Russell Wilson, the whole spring with the first team, they kind of lost all that continuity now with him, still out with that calf injury. So I'm not super worried about that when you have timing concepts that require practice like that. Obviously, these sessions are really helpful. So that's something to kind of watch. I'm interested to see how that improves over the course of training camp. Really good press conference today with Payton Wilson. Talked to him about a few things. I've been, one thing I was really concerned about when the Steelers drafted Payton Wilson. Obviously, the injury history is something, but I think he's got a really, really good routine down, and he comes out there 30 minutes early and tries to really kind of mitigate the risk of those injuries. He's been healthy the past few seasons. Seems like he might be on to something. So that's very encouraging. But I thought the more interesting part was, and the biggest concern I had when they drafted him was specifically what are they going to do with him? He was obviously going to play inside linebacker. But when you actually looked at what he did at NC State, he did a ton of stuff off the edge, and he did a ton of stuff kind of rolling back and did it. that deep Tampa 2 area. He didn't play a ton of traditional stack linebacker behind the defensive line. So, he was kind of like an Isaiah Simmons almost when he was coming out of Clemson, he was playing everywhere. But I was interested to ask him kind of how he figures about the transition of Foley to that stack role because 3-4, you're going to naturally play stack the entire time. He's loving it, man, and I can see why. I talked yesterday about how he was kind of flying around everywhere, the closing speed's crazy, and you could see it. He loves blitzing. He loves getting after it. He's always around the play, and so I think, it was really interesting to get kind of those insights from Payton Wilson, and learn kind of about that, where they're pegging him in. He's versatile, can do a lot of different things, but I think he can do a lot of different things from that one spot. I think that's the right way to go about it. DeMarvin Leal. I mean, there's only so much I can say about DeMarvin Leal when he's not in pads, right? Because defensive lineman and O lineman in pads, and it's like, what are you gonna do? It's not much you can do. A lot of batted balls down today from the D line, but not much you can do. DeMarvin Leal, though, has absolutely shined. I mean, these first 2 days for DeMarvin Leal have been great. You see the burst, you see kind of this motor that I didn't think he had in previous years. He's flying 30 yards downfield to go after Jalen Warren, just showcasing his hustle. He's knifing into the backfield, getting his hands up and batting down balls. He's just always around the football right now. So another really good day for DeMarvin Leal. It would be so huge for them to have him break out because this D line room, I think the top three are going to be fine. I like Keanu Benton. I think Ogunjobi's kind of due for a little regression back to the mean. And then I think Cam Hayward, it's going to be better than people think. He still has his great power and strength, and that's the base of his game. So I think he'll still be really good. But behind him, Dean Lowry's hurt. Montravius Adams is good depth, but then you kind of had Logan Lee, Brain Fajoko, Isaiah Loudermilk, and Leal. Leal could be the most dynamic pass rusher and player of those guys. And sometimes it does take long for these raw three techniques that come out of college to get going. I think Javon Kinlaw is a really good example of that with the 49ers as a first-round pick. Came out pretty raw, didn't play well, but finally clicked late in his career. Late with that first contract with them. So I really think Leal, if he can tap into that potential, we'll see. Building days. He's built 2 good days, but I'm really excited to see what happens when the pads come on, and I'm cautiously optimistic about what Leal is building. The last thing that I really am kind of looking at for what this team was doing is the secondary. The secondary is particularly interesting because it has a lot of new parts. Talking about Deshaun Elliott, you're talking about Dante Jackson, you're talking about Beanie Bishop, you're talking about all of these guys, right? And the Steelers have gone after them like fairly early. And to their credit, these guys in the secondary have stepped up. Dante Jackson had a beautiful pass breakup on a go route to George Pickens earlier today. Beanie Bishop has had some really nice plays. He's gone up against guys like Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin, really held his own. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. And Deshaun Elliott's had a really nice start to kind of playing the slot, strong safety in the box, doing a lot of different things. But the Steelers really are testing them early on, and I think that's a good thing. And it's good to have, this kind of secondary wide receiving group go up against each other again. Like Van Jefferson, for example, burned Joey Porter Jr. earlier on a corner route. And, he had a good day, and he's had a few big plays. So, he's looking like a dependable player that could maybe be a red zone threat. So you see guys step up through that competition, and I'm looking to see it even more in the coming days. We'll be back here tomorrow, folks, Saturday practice at St. Vincent College. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn the notification bell on the YouTube channel. And if you are listening to this, make sure to leave a review. Thanks for watching, folks. Till next time.